they never seen in the last 20 years. People, some have a nice fresh coffee and also have a nice fresh food. It seems like my restaurant is makes to open the world and see, you know, they have a life good before. They never have a life before.
For the first time in a very long time, Somalis have a choice of where to go to meet friends, enjoy cappuccino and even a pipe of flavored tobacco, albeit discreetly. His patrons have developed a taste for green polenta, oxtail and lobster Somali style. But of course, this is still Mogadishu. Al-Shabaab may no longer have a visible presence in the city, but they're still here. At the entrance to the village restaurant stand armed guards. The gate is fortified with sandbags. A gunman looks down from the turret. A legacy of the last time Al-Shabaab chose to make their presence felt.
In November last year, 2 men came up to the front gate of Ahmed's restaurant with explosives strapped to their bodies, detonated the explosives, killing a soldier right here. At another restaurant, another explosion. 25 of his customers were killed. And yet Somalis, Mogadishu residents, still keep coming out to these restaurants day after day with their families.
Ahmed says as long as his customers keep coming, he's willing to keep risking his life alongside them.
They're trying to stop the people feeling like they have a new life. I will not going to stop for that. I'll just keep going.
For the first time in the more than 2 decades of Somali conflict, there's a sense of optimism. A newly appointed president, planned reform for the country's security forces, and promises of substantial support from the international community. Somalis, it seems, have had a taste of normal life, and Al-Shabaab violence, no matter how bloody, no longer holds the power it once did. Ni'mal Bagher, CNN, Mogadishu.
We apologize for that short break. That was due to some technical problems, and we'll go back to the previous story. The UN says violence in Iraq killed more people last month than in any other month since June of 2008, and that is being blamed on the rise in sectarian clashes. The majority share were sidelined under Saddam Hussein, but they now hold significant power, and many Sunnis say they are gearing up for a showdown. CNN's Our Demon has more on that, but we must warn you, it does contain some images we may find disturbing.
Run away. The soldiers taunt the men as they flee. The narrative seen in videos posted to YouTube, whose authenticity CNN cannot independently verify, appears to contradict the government version of events. That its forces were targeting terrorists who infiltrated a camp of anti-government demonstrators in the town of Hawija last month, some 2 hours north of Baghdad. Amid the blue tents used by demonstrators, bodies are strewn about. One collapsed next to a wheelchair. A man in what appears to be a SWAT uniform kicks a corpse in the head. The image is feeding the rage of Iraq's Sunni population. The following Friday, the calls to bring down the Shia-led government of Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki were amplified, especially here, one of the main centers of the protests. located in Iraq's Sunni heartland of Al-Anbar province. Demonstrators have been blocking the highway for months. We traveled there over the weekend. The men launch into a tirade against Maliki's government, who they accuse of oppressing the Sunnis and indiscriminately throwing them behind bars. He considers us all to be Saddamists, one states. They tell us the Hawija massacre was a message. And it's a message they've been expecting. We've been ready for a long time. We are certain that al-Maliki is a liar. The political process is just a game. Sheikh Ali Hatem Suleiman, one of the main tribal leaders here, tells us our weapons are everywhere, light, medium, and on up. The tribes with a culture entrenched in weaponry have a fighting force at their disposal that has plenty of experience. They allied themselves with al-Qaeda in Iraq and battled U.S. forces for years before turning on the terrorist group. This time, Suleiman vows that no matter what, they won't allow al-Qaeda to dominate again. The tribes are not and will not again be a nurturing ground for terrorism, he tells us. The tribes are forming the so-called Army of Pride and Dignity. Each tribe will be responsible for its own men and their actions, pledging there won't be another Hawija.
This is what remains of an Iraqi army convoy that was attacked at the end of last month following the incident in Hawija. And a few days after this attack took place, on this same road, a vehicle carrying Iraqi army soldiers in civilian clothing came under fire as well. 5 of them were killed. Following that incident, the Iraqi government, enraged, demanded that the perpetrators be handed over or else. And all of this happening just outside of where the demonstrations take place.
Everyone claims they don't know who the attackers were. And while there are some efforts to dial back the tensions, many Iraqis fear that their country is on the brink of yet another civil war. Arwa Damon, CNN, Ramadi, Iraq.
The body of deceased Boston bombing suspect Tamerlan Tsarnaev remains at a funeral home more than 2 weeks after he was killed. So far, no cemetery in or around Boston will accept his remains for burial. CNN Susan Radakadioti has more on that story in this report.
No cemetery, no burial plot that will accept the remains of Tamerlan Tsarnaev, and the funeral home's director is wondering what he's supposed to do. Now, also, the city of Cambridge, where Tsarnaev used to live, is also rejecting the notion that he should be buried anywhere near Boston, even though he lived in this area for more than 10 years. So no one knows what's going to happen next.
Send them back to Russia.
4 days, protesters outside a Worcester funeral home making it clear suspected bomber Tamerlan Tsarnaev is as hated as much dead as he would be alive. One sign reads, "Bury the garbage," but not in America. His remains in limbo at a funeral home, much to the chagrin of its director.
The thing is, we have to bury this guy. Whatever it is, whoever he is, in this country, we bury people. I don't care who it is.
So far, not a single cemetery will take Tsarnaev's remains. His uncle from Maryland, who in the days after the bombing called his 2 nephews losers, spent Sunday at a funeral home to cleanse and shroud the body as required by Islamic faith.
I'm left alone to deal with this matter. And I also stress that Tamerlan Tsarnaev has no other place to be buried.
President Kennedy's assassin Lee Harvey Oswald is buried in the Dallas area. Homegrown Oklahoma City terrorist bomber Timothy McVeigh's ashes were scattered after his execution. Where remains a mystery. As for Tsarnaev's widow, according to her in-law, she's steering clear of burial plans. Her attorney says she's still cooperating with the FBI. On Sunday, FBI investigators wearing protective suits spent hours back at Tsarnaev's home, where a law enforcement source says bomb residue had earlier been found on a kitchen sink, table, and bathtub. Surviving bombing suspect Jahar told the FBI.
We'll take our second break. Stay tuned.
Good.
have new ATMs.
At Standard Chartered Bank, our customers